It was supposed to be a quick trip to my ancestral village, Rupsha Bari. My grandmother had fallen ill, and I hadn't visited in years. I took a leave from work, packed a small bag, and headed off, hoping to spend a few days taking care of her. Little did I know, this trip would change my life forever. Rupsha Bari is a small, isolated village in the northern part of Bangladesh, surrounded by dense forests and rice fields. The air there feels different, thicker, almost suffocating. The village itself is quiet, almost eerily so, especially at night. The elders often spoke of jinns and spirits lurking in the shadows, but I never took their warnings seriously. I grew up in the city, where such tales were nothing more than old wives' stories meant to scare children. But everything changed on the third night of my stay. It started with a whisper, faint, almost imperceptible. I was lying in bed, trying to fall asleep, when I heard it. First, I thought it was the wind, rustling through the bamboo groves outside. The sound was too deliberate, too human. It seemed to be coming from the corner of the room where the shadows gathered thickest. I turned on my side, trying to ignore it. The whisper grew louder, more insistent. It wasn't just one voice, but many, overlapping and swirling around me. They spoke in a language I didn't understand, but the tone was unmistakable, angry, mocking. A cold sweat broke out across my forehead. I sat up, straining my ears to catch the words. The room felt colder, and I noticed my breath was visible in the air. The voices grew louder still, rising to a crescendo, until I could no longer bear it. I fumbled for the light switch, but as soon as I did, the whisper stopped, leaving only a deafening silence in their wake. I sat there, heart pounding, trying to make sense of what had just happened. My mind raced with possibilities, but nothing made sense. I was about to convince myself it was just my imagination, when I noticed something that made my blood run cold. The corner of the room, the one where the whispers had come from, was darker than before, as if the shadows had thickened, deepened, becoming almost solid. And then, slowly, they began to move. I froze, unable to breathe, as the darkness took shape. A figure emerged, tall and thin, with long, spindly arms that reached the floor. Its eyes were the only feature I could make out, two glowing orbs that bore into me, filled with an indescribable malice. My grandmother had warned me about this, about the jinns that roamed the village at night. She always said they were drawn to those who didn't believe, who were too arrogant to respect the old ways. I had laughed it off back then, but now, sitting in that darkened room, I wasn't laughing anymore. The figure moved closer, its presence sucking the warmth out of the room. I wanted to scream, to run, but I couldn't move. It felt as if an invisible force was holding me down, pinning me to the bed. The figure loomed over me, its eyes burning brighter, and then it spoke, its voice a low, guttural growl that reverberated through my skull.
"You do not belong here."
The words sent a jolt of terror through me. I tried to pray, to recite something, anything, but the words wouldn't come. My mind was blank, consumed by fear. The figure reached out, its hand hovering inches from my face, and I felt a wave of coldness wash over me, so intense it burned. Just when I thought I couldn't take it anymore, the door to my room burst open, and my grandmother stood there, clutching a piece of cloth soaked in something pungent. She waved it in the air, chanting something in a language I didn't understand. The figure recoiled, hissing in fury, before dissolving into the shadows. The room grew warmer, and the pressure on my chest lifted. I gasped for air, collapsing back onto the bed, trembling uncontrollably. My grandmother rushed to my side, holding me close, her voice soothing. "It's gone now," she whispered, "but it will return if you do not respect its presence." The rest of that night passed in a blur. My grandmother stayed with me, chanting prayers until dawn. The figure didn't return, but the fear it left behind lingered, gnawing at the edges of my sanity. I left the village the next day, making excuses about work, but the truth was, I couldn't stay there any longer. The thought of facing that thing again was unbearable. Even now, back in the safety of my apartment, and still feel its eyes on me, watching, waiting. Sometimes, late at night, when the world is quiet and the shadows creep in, I hear it again, the whisper, faint at first but growing louder, more insistent. And I know it's not over. The Jinn of Rupsha Bari hasn't forgotten me. It's only a matter of time before it comes back to finish what it started. So, if you ever find yourself in a place where the air feels heavy, where the shadows seem to move on their own, heed this warning. Do not dismiss the old stories. Some things are better left undisturbed, and some places are not meant for the living.